RC drifting has become an increasingly popular hobby among enthusiasts worldwide. However, there is an ongoing debate in the community about rear-wheel drive versus four-wheel drive. So, we here at Salt City RC made a list of 5 reasons why rear-wheel drive RC cars are better for indoor drifting than four-wheel drive RC cars. 1. Positioning of components. In most four-wheel drive RC cars, the positioning of the components is not as strategically placed as in rear-wheel drive RC cars with their rearward weight bias. This can make 4WD cars less predictable and harder to control when drifting. Rear-wheel drive RC cars typically have their motor and battery positioned toward the rear of the car, which creates a rearward weight bias that improves traction and handling during a drift. This also allows for better weight transfer during a drift, which can be essential for maintaining control of the vehicle. 2. Turning radius. RWD RC cars tend to have a tighter turning radius than four-wheel drive RC cars, which can make them more agile and better suited for technical courses with tight turns. This is because RWD RC cars can rely on their rear wheels for traction and control during a drift, while 4WD RC cars must use all 4 wheels to maintain traction, which can limit their ability to turn tightly. 3. Realism. Many RC drift enthusiasts, groups, and clubs prefer rear-wheel drive RC cars for their realism, as they closely mimic the behavior of full-size RWD cars during a drift. This is because RWD RC cars rely on a combination of throttle control, weight transfer, and countersteering to initiate and maintain a drift, just like their full-size counterparts. In contrast, 4WD RC cars can be seen as less realistic due to their lack of oversteer and throttle control during a drift, which can make them feel more like grip cars than drift cars. For power distribution and speed, four-wheel drive RC cars tend to have better power distribution and higher speeds than RWD RC cars. This can make them better suited for power sliding or drifting at higher speeds in a parking lot or on a straightaway. However, coupled with their lack of turning radius, 4WD RC cars can be less suitable for indoor courses with tight turns. The higher speeds of 4WD RC cars can also make them more challenging to control during a drift, which can be a disadvantage for beginners. 5. Track restrictions. 4WD RC cars are often not allowed at RC drift tracks due to their speed, lack of turning radius, and realism. The inability of 4WD RC cars to initiate and maintain a proper drift can make them annoying to other drivers on the track, and can even be dangerous if they collide with other vehicles. Additionally, the higher speeds of 4WD RC cars can make them more likely to damage the track scenery or barriers, which can be costly and time-consuming to repair. As a result, many RC drift tracks restrict the use of 4WD RC cars to maintain the safety and enjoyment of all drivers. The summary of the list is that while four-wheel drive RC drift cars have certain advantages over rear-wheel drive cars, such as better power distribution and higher speeds, they also have some significant disadvantages. These disadvantages include less predictable handling due to the positioning of components, a wider turning radius, and a lack of realism compared to RWD cars. Additionally, 4WD cars are often not allowed at indoor RC drift tracks due to their speed, lack of turning radius, and tendency to damage track scenery. Furthermore, the power sliding style of drifting, which involves drifting at high speeds, is generally frowned upon by many RC drift enthusiasts and clubs, who prefer a more realistic and technical style of drifting. These negatives are often discussed in RC drifting communities on social media platforms such as Facebook groups, where enthusiasts share their experiences, opinions, and tips for improving their drifting skills. Here's a funny story to consider about a guy named Don Juan who loved RC drift scene. He was always on the lookout for the latest and greatest RC cars to add to his collection. One day, he stumbled upon a four-wheel drive drift car that was on sale for hundreds of dollars less than the RWD RC drift cars his friends had. Excited about his new purchase, Don Juan arranged a meet-up with his group of 8 friends at the local hobby shop to get some slides in. The group was excited to see Don Juan's new car, but also a bit nervous about what might happen when he took it out on the track with them. The group had a variety of rear-wheel drive RC drift cars, including Yokomos, MSTs, and Red Cat RDSs. They were all well-versed in the art of drifting and had spent countless hours perfecting their techniques. Don Juan, on the other hand, was a bit of a novice when it came to RC drifting, but he was eager to learn. As soon as Don Juan hit the track with his four-wheel drive drift car, the rest of the group began to get nervous. They had heard stories about the unpredictability of 4WD RC cars and weren't sure how Don Juan's car would handle on the track. As Don Juan began to drift around the track, his car seemed to be handling well, but the rest of the group remained cautious. The track owner, who was watching from the sidelines, was also nervous about Don Juan's car. He had seen firsthand the damage that four-wheel drive RC cars could do to his scale scenery and was worried that Don Juan's Amazon Tamiya clone might wreak havoc on his carefully crafted track. Despite the apprehension of his friends and the track owner, Don Juan continued to drift around the track with his 4WD car. He was having a blast, but he couldn't help but notice the worried looks on his friends' faces. "Don't worry, guys," he called out to them. "I've got this." As he continued to drift around the track, Don Juan began to push the limits of his car's speed and power. He was power sliding around corners and doing donuts in the middle of the track. His friends watched in awe, but also in fear of their own cars being damaged. In the end, Don Juan's car did manage to hold up through the entire meetup, and he had a great time showing off his new four-wheel drive drift car. However, his friends and the track owner were relieved when the day was over and they could all head home without any serious damage to their rear-wheel drive RC drift cars or the track scenery. As for Don Juan, he was already looking forward to his next meetup with his friends, and he couldn't wait to see what other tricks he could pull off with his new 4WD drift car.